Imagine a world where the ground has turned to iron, the rivers are bone dry, and a single cup of water is worth more than gold. For over 3 years, this was the reality in ancient Israel. No rain, no dew, just scorching, relentless heat. But this wasn't just a natural disaster. It was a hostage situation. One man had prayed to lock the heavens, and he challenged the most powerful, ruthless monarchy on earth to a duel to get them back open. This is the story of the ultimate showdown. One lone prophet against an empire, 850 cult priests, and a king who wanted his head on a spike. By the end of this day, either a nation would be restored or a man would be slaughtered in front of thousands. And the only judge allowed in this arena was fire. To understand how we got to the edge of this mountain, we have to meet the man running the country, King Ahab. The Bible calls Ahab one of the most compromised kings in history. But the real power behind the throne was his wife, Queen Jezebel. Jezebel didn't just want to rule Israel, she wanted to erase its heritage. She systematically hunted down and executed the prophets of the traditional God of Israel, replacing them with the priesthood of Baal, the Canaanite god of fertility, storms, and rain. Enter Elijah. His name literally means, "My God is Yahweh." He was a rugged outdoorsman from the hills of Gilead. He didn't wear royal robes. He wore a garment of hair and a leather belt. 3.5 years earlier, Elijah walked right into Ahab's palace, looked the king in the eye, and dropped a bomb. "As the Lord God lives, there will be no dew or rain these years, except at my word." Then he vanished into the wilderness. Ahab spent the next 42 months turning the Middle East upside down looking for him, forcing neighboring kingdoms to swear oaths that they weren't hiding the fugitive prophet. Then, out of nowhere, when the famine is at its absolute worst, Elijah walks right back into the lion's den. When Ahab sees him, he snaps, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" Elijah doesn't flinch. He looks at the dictator and fires back, "I haven't troubled Israel, you have. You abandoned the true God. Now, summon the entire nation. Gather the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah. Meet me on Mount Carmel. It's time to settle this." Mount Carmel was chosen for a reason. It was historically considered sacred ground, and because of its height, it was the first place to catch incoming rain clouds from the sea. If Baal was the god of storms, this was his home turf. Elijah was walking onto the away team's field. Picture the scene. Thousands of desperate, starving citizens line the ridges. On one side stand 850 wealthy, politically backed prophets of Baal and Asherah, dressed in royal finery. On the other side, standing completely alone, is Elijah. Elijah steps up to the crowd. He looks at the people of Israel, who have been trying to play both sides, worshiping God when it was convenient, and worshiping Baal to stay safe with the queen. He yells across the valley, How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." The crowd is dead silent. No one moves, no one risks picking a side. So Elijah sets the rules of the game, and they are brilliant. The prophets of Baal get first pick, cut up the wood, place the meat, but no one lights a match. The God who answers by fire, he is God. The crowd roars its approval. This is fair. If Baal is the god of lightning and storms, lighting a pile of dry wood on top of a mountain should be a cakewalk for him. The prophets of Baal take their bull, prepare the altar, and begin. From morning until noon, they pace around the altar, chanting over and over, "O Baal, answer us." But nothing happens. The sun beats down on the dry wood. The sky remains blindingly blue. By noon, Elijah gets bored. And this is where the Bible records some of the most savage trash talk in ancient literature. Elijah starts mocking them in front of the whole nation. He shouts, "Ha, shout louder. Surely he is a god. Maybe he's deep in thought, or maybe he's busy, or traveling, or maybe he's taking a nap and you need to wake him up." Fun fact, the original Hebrew phrase translated as busy or relieving himself is literally a polite euphemism for maybe he's on the toilet. Elijah is telling 450 priests that their supreme deity is currently stuck in the bathroom. Driven into a frenzy of humiliation and panic, the prophets of Baal go to extremes. Following their ancient customs, they draw swords and spears and begin cutting themselves until blood flows down their robes. They scream, dance, and rave all afternoon. But there was no voice, no one answered, no one paid attention. At 3 p.m., the time of the traditional evening sacrifice, Elijah calls the people closer. While the prophets of Baal lie bleeding and exhausted around their cold altar, Elijah does something symbolic. He takes 12 stones, representing the 12 fractured tribes of Israel, and rebuilds an ancient, ruined altar to the Lord. He digs a deep trench all the way around it, wide enough to hold about 15 quarts of seed. He lays the wood. He cuts up the bull. But then, Elijah decides that a regular miracle isn't enough. He wants to eliminate even the slightest suspicion of a trick. He looks at the crowd and says, "Now fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and the wood." Remember, they are in a historic drought. Water is precious, but they pour it out. "Do it a second time," Elijah says. They do it. Do it a third time. By the time they are finished, the meat is soaked, the wood is waterlogged, and the trench around the altar is completely overflowing with water. It is physically impossible to light this fire. Elijah steps forward. He doesn't chant for hours. He doesn't cut himself. He doesn't scream. He prays a simple 30-second prayer. "Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant. Answer me, Lord, so these people will know that you are turning their hearts back again." The second the words leave his mouth, the sky splits open. A bolt of brilliant, blinding fire falls from heaven. It hits the altar with the force of a missile. It doesn't just burn the meat. The sheer intensity of the heat consumes the wet wood, disintegrates the 12 massive stones, burns up the soil itself, and completely licks up every single drop of water in the trench. The crowd falls flat on their faces in absolute terror. The debate is over. The silence is broken. Thousands of voices begin shouting in unison, "We the Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." In a swift motion, the corrupt prophets are arrested, and Elijah turns to King Ahab, who is standing paralyzed with shock. Elijah tells him, "Rise, go eat and drink, for there is the sound of a heavy rain coming." Elijah climbs to the top of the mountain, bows down, and watches as a small cloud the size of a man's hand rises from the sea. Within minutes, the sky turns black, the wind rises, and a massive torrential downpour floods the parched earth of Israel. The drought was broken. The showdown was won. This ancient story remains one of the most powerful accounts ever recorded because it asks a timeless question. In a world full of noise, trends, and competing voices telling you what to believe, how long will you waver between two opinions? True faith doesn't hide in the shadows. It answers when tested by fire. If you want to discover more epic, unfiltered stories from history that you were never taught in Sunday school, hit that subscribe button right now and check out this next video right here. See you there.